Now we are in the information era and we are in the intelligence era. And we need to understand that we can no longer associate dominance, power, and all these other things with masculinity if we really truly want to advance. Because if we do that, we limit ourselves as a society. Society puts so much pressure on men to go out and get, and they teach men that you only have value when you have a lot of money, when you have a lot of cars. But look around, most men are not in that 1%. I guess my message to men is that you don't always need to have and get and be on top. You're allowed to be human.
How it works is it is essentially looking for a place to rest, okay? It's looking for almost like a rock or a hero. And I hate to use that word. This is not a derogatory video to women or anything like that. I was raised by a single mom. I have complete respect, okay? It is essentially looking for a place to rest, to just settle down and grow with a rock who is able to essentially lead the way. To masculine energy is to essentially lead the way. It is almost like you think of a tree and a hole. It is to build an empire, essentially. This is what masculine energy does. It wants to continuously progress and get bigger and better and better and better. So this is why predominantly men work.
So, if you ask me, he made some very interesting points, but there are two things here, right? There's a difference between societal norms and human nature. And I think that basically, I just think that a lot of men are struggling with the fact that we're no longer hunter-gatherers and that technology has advanced to the stage where intelligence and let me not call it intelligence, but let me call it survival is no longer determined by strength, and now it's determined by intelligence. And I think a lot of men are struggling with this, so they tell themselves these lies so that they can still feel dominant, so they feel like, oh, they are still superior or above women. So this is my view, right? So on one hand, you can really make the point that evolution and genetics is a major factor, and when you look at the human race, we evolved based on the conditions that we were living and surviving and thriving or whatever in. So because of human evolution, and you've seen in the past historically that men were typically the hunters. So you would say, okay, it's interesting, naturally you would say, okay, masculine energy, it makes sense to say that on an evolution standpoint, masculine energy is more dominant. On an evolution standpoint, you could say that, you can make that argument. But on the flip side, we're also called Homo sapiens for a reason. Homo sapien actually means wise man. So compared to the other human species that have lived on the planet, Homo erectus, Homo Neanderthal, there's so many different human species, but they were not wise the way that we were. So intelligence is a key component to why we're not animals, right? Intelligence is a key component to why we have all the technology we have, and we're living differently than lions or dogs or whatever. So strength is not necessarily and has never really been the factor to why we have thrived as a society. It has always been intelligence. Okay? So I think that moving forward as a society it's very important that we acknowledge that we're no longer in the industrial era. We're no longer in the hunter-gatherer era. Now we are in the information era and we are in the intelligence era. And we need to understand that we can no longer associate dominance, power, and all these other things with masculinity if we really truly want to advance. Because if we do that, we limit ourselves as a society. So that's my main takeaway. And I think that saying that masculinity is dominance and saying that masculinity is about being going out and getting shit done or whatever nonsense he said. It's just a way that men lie to themselves to try and believe that they still have something. But I guess my message to men is that you don't always need to have and get and be on top to thrive or to survive. You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to be, you're allowed to rest on your intelligence rather than thinking that you need to be stronger and more dominant than the next guy. It's not emotionally intelligent. And I think as we're in the information era, as we are in an era where intelligence is the most important thing, emotional intelligence and is very key in your ability to survive in this time frame that we're living in human history. So that's a very important note. And I hope that people can stop lying to themselves and telling themselves that all this nonsense, because it's not true. And I know that a lot of these super masculine or whatever they want to call themselves, super dominant males that thrived in the industrial era are not happy about this shift. They're not happy about this change. But by all means, you guys can go and build your own communities, primitive communities in whatever village you want to go do that there. Because where we are advancing as a society around the world, emotional intelligence, EQ, is important. And let us not limit ourselves by telling us that women are supposed to rest and men are supposed to thrive or whatever nonsense. It's a lie, and it's just not true. Look around you. Look at all the women around you. Sure, how many of them are resting and doing nothing? And then look at all the men around you. How many of them are resting and doing nothing? Especially those in societies that enable intelligence, right? Pay attention. And I just wanted to conclude by saying that society puts so much pressure on men. They put so much pressure on men to go out and get, and they teach men that you only have value when you have a lot of money, when you have a lot of cars. But look around, most men are not in that 1%. There's a reason why when you even look at animals, and I'll take animals in this stage, and even in human nature, you see this. 1% of the guys get all the women. 1% of the guys get all the whatever it is, right? Get all the attention, get all the praise for being dominant. And look at the other men at the bottom that can't get to the top. What happens to them? They end up having depression. In fact, men are more likely to commit suicide than women. Men have fewer best friends. I made a documentary where we broke this down. Men have fewer people that can tell their personal emotional issues to. Men have fewer people. In fact, I was even told most men don't have anyone that they can come to and really divulge all of their emotional trauma, and they don't have anyone to go to. So this is because of the pressure that society puts on men to be dominant, and it's just not realistic and it's not real. So let's move in a place with emotional intelligence and understand that you don't have to have and get and do to be a man. You are a human being. So all you need to do is to be. That's it.